World War II exposed how fragile even the most advanced warships could be. One by one, heavy cruisers across every navy fell, not from poor design, but from rapid changes in tactics and technology they weren't built to face. The USS Artoria's 8 years of pre-war service stand in stark contrast to its brief 9-month wartime career. At the Battle of Tsevo Island, Artoria was caught in a perfectly executed trap, ambushed in total darkness and illuminated by enemy searchlights. The ship was overwhelmed by concentrated point-blank gunfire. A seasoned veteran after the pivotal carrier battles of the Coral Sea and Midway, the Artoria's combat career was cut prematurely short. This battle-hardened asset was lost just as it proved its worth. The USS Historia was a treaty ship displacing nearly 10,000 tons with the complement of 708 men. After proving itself in modern carrier-based warfare, the Historia was ironically destroyed in an old-fashioned night gun battle. This valuable lesson forced the U.S. Navy to improve night combat tactics. The Fiume was an Italian Zara-class heavy cruiser and built with the doctrine of superior protection, a massive 150 mm armor belt and powerful 18 guns. Designed as a floating fortress with superior armor, the Fiume's protection proved useless against an enemy it couldn't detect. At the Battle of Cape Matapan, the Fiume sailed blindly into a British ambush. Due to a significant gap in radar technology, the British fleet was able to surprise and destroy the Italian cruiser at point-blank range. The Fiume's 10-year service career was tragically cut short in just 5 minutes during its first and only major fleet battle. The Battle of Cape Matapan was a catastrophic blow to the Italian Navy with the loss of 3 heavy cruisers. HMAS Canberra was the pride of the Royal Australian Navy. Serving for 14 years, she was the flagship of the Southern Screening Force before her loss at the Battle of Tsevo Island. Expected to be a powerful flagship, HMAS Canberra was unable to fire a single shot in defense. She was crippled by 24 hits in under 2 minutes. Strong evidence suggests the first critical damage came from American friendly fire, followed by devastating Japanese torpedoes and shell fire. The loss of HMAS Canberra caused an immediate collapse in the Allied command structure. In an ironic twist of fate, HMAS Canberra was critically wounded by friendly fire from an American destroyer she was defending. She was later honored by both nations, with the U.S. Navy naming another heavy cruiser after her, the USS Canberra CA-70. The Algerie was a French naval engineering masterpiece that never realized its potential. Commissioned as a treaty warship in 1934, she was scuttled at Chalon in 1942. On paper, the Algerie was arguably the perfect heavy cruiser, balancing powerful guns, superior protection, and good speed. After the French armistice, she remained under Vichy control and never fired her main guns in a major battle. Her expected role as a dominant warship devolved into rotting at anchor and being scuttled by her crew. The scuttling of the Algerie was a self-inflicted strategic loss born of political paralysis. This powerful warship, which could have been a game-changer in the Mediterranean, was simply removed from the global naval chessboard. Deemed too valuable to be captured by German, she was denied of her purpose and ultimately scuttled. HMS Eggs, it was a celebrated Royal Navy cruiser, famed for its 1939 victory against the Admiral Graf-I pocket battleship. After extensive repairs, she was sent to the Pacific. In Java Sea, the battle-hardened hero was ultimately outmatched and overwhelmed by the superior Japanese forces. Exeter's destruction was a case of methodical execution. Intercepted by an overwhelming Japanese force, she lost all power after a critical hit to her boilers and was systematically destroyed. Her eventual loss in the Java Sea marked the final nail in the coffin for the Allied naval defense of the Dutch East Indies. In a cruel reversal of roles, the celebrated hunter of the German pocket battleship, Admiral Graf-I, was herself cornered and hunted down with no chance of survival. The USS Quincy was a modern New Orleans-class heavy cruiser that served as flagship for the Marine landings on Guadalcanal. Caught in a deadly ambush off Tsevo Island, the Quincy was completely surprised and illuminated by Japanese searchlights. After 6 years of peacetime service, she was sunk in her first major fleet engagement. The loss of the Quincy and 3 other heavy cruisers at Savo Island was a strategic disaster. It exposed critical vulnerabilities in Allied night tactics and plunged the Guadalcanal campaign into crisis for months. In a defiant act, the Quincy's captain turned to engage the enemy, but this brave decision under difficult conditions sailed the ship directly into an inescapable Japanese crossfire and sealed its fate. The story of the heavy cruiser Mikuma is not of glorious combat, but a tragedy of mishap. A veteran warrior, Mikuma's 7-year career spanned multiple theaters of war. Her loss at a critical moment after the Battle of Midway was a strategic blow for the Imperial Japanese Navy. In a twist of fate, Mikuma survived the main battle with only minimal damage, successfully avoided air attacks that sank 4 Japanese fleet carriers. However, her fate was sealed by a collision with her sister ship Momi. The collision ruptured her oil tanks, leaving a slick that revealed her position to Allied aircraft. Expected to be a top-tier and dominant surface combatant, her reality was an accidental end, lost not to the enemy, but to an unexpected mishap. The Blücher was a modern Admiral Hipper-class heavy cruiser that served as the flagship for the German invasion of Oslo in April 1940, and her story is one of pure humiliation. She was to lead a swift, decisive strike, but sank on her very first combat operation. Blücher's fate was sealed by aging coastal defenses. The first shells knocked out her fire control center, and she was then struck by 2 torpedoes. From the first shot fired to her sinking, the entire engagement lasted a mere 2 hours. Blücher's sinking was a strategic misfortune laden with irony. The very guns that sank her were built by crew, the same German company that had manufactured her own armor plating. The Furutoka was commissioned into the Imperial Japanese Navy in 1926. By 1942, after a long service spanning 16 years, Furutoka was an older vessel more suited for a secondary role. However, she was thrust into a frontline position. At the Battle of Cape Esperance, Furutoka was ambushed by American forces, aided by radar advantage. In the ensuing engagement, she was struck by approximately 90 shells and a torpedo that flooded her engine room and left her dead in the water before she sank. After a lengthy service, Furutoka's moment of combat glory was short-lived. Her sinking represented a major strategic turning point, as it was one of the first times a Japanese cruiser was defeated in night combat. 2 months after participating victoriously at the Battle of Savo Island, she was destroyed in nearly the same manner that had defeated her enemies in the same waters. The USS Indianapolis was a distinguished Portland-class heavy cruiser that served from 1932 until its tragic sinking on July 15, 1945. Following the successful delivery of its top-secret cargo, the Indianapolis was expected to rejoin the fleet for the final invasion of Japan. However, while sailing unescorted, it was struck by 2 torpedoes from a Japanese submarine and sank in a mere 12 minutes. The USS Indianapolis had a long and decorated service record, earning 10 battle stars for its participation in numerous major campaigns throughout World War II. Tragically, it was sunk just weeks before Japan announced its surrender. Captain Charles B. McVeigh survived the horrific sinking of his ship, but his ordeal was far from over. In a controversial move, he was court-martialed for endangering his ship by failing to zigzag. Thank you for watching and see you in our next videos.